What's up, everyone? Tonight on Protect and Serve, are suburban moms the new Black Panthers? Are you team reform ICE or abolish ICE? And from punk music to the Bad Bunny Bowl, is music the key to fighting fascists? All of this important because tomorrow Congress votes on DHS funding. Democrats say no masks, visible badges, cameras, body cams, and Republicans say following the law is a non-starter. And Pam Bondi says the Dow is at 50,000. But before we get into all of that, Mike, what's good?
Oh, I'm still reeling from the Pam Bondi experience yesterday. That was a hell of a hearing. We were talking offline about it, and I've been watching, in MAGA land for a really long time now. There's been a few individuals who have stood out as fighting aggressively for the moniker of Donald Trump's bottom bitch. If you're not familiar with this term, this goes back to my Vice days and working prostitution cases, and I want to explain to all the viewers what the bottom bitch is. So I asked AI to kind of help me convey this, and the bottom bitch or bottom girl is the highest ranking prostitute in a pimp's hierarchy. In this case,
it would be okay. So it's not the bottom. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Bottom is top.
Right. And so they are they're trusted to manage the other women or men, collect money, and handle day-to-day affairs. Other roles and responsibilities is she or he works the track, so to speak, manages finances, trains new recruits, and handles affairs when the pimp is not available. And I had put together a list of the top candidates, and I had Megyn Kelly in the race. I had Marjorie Taylor Greene, although she dropped out. I had Pam Bondi, and because, it is 2026, and not to be sexist, but Mike Johnson definitely deserves to be named in the top running for Donald Trump's bottom bitch. But the race is over. There is a clear winner. The winner is Pam Bondi. She is Donald Trump's bottom bitch. So congratulations, Pam Bondi. That was quite a display you put on yesterday. I'm not sure where you can go in this country after that and be looked at as anything other than a despicable, disgusting sycophant for Donald Trump. But at least you won Trump's bottom bitch. So the prize is in the mail. Look for it. Congratulations.
I was gonna say, I hope the prize is eventually a long prison sentence. I hope everybody at home took notes on the bottom bitch, and I'm thinking maybe we need now a section of the show where it's just you in front of a chalkboard or like a dry erase board going over.
There's got to be another contest because that one's over.
That was. Hands down, it's over. The words that come to mind when watching yesterday are those words that people I've noticed online are starting to use more frequently. It's the C word that you can say in the UK all the time, but in the US was like the word you never say. And I saw somebody post on Threads, Pam Bondi is and then it was with panels. And so you had to just keep sliding. And I so deliciously needed to see the finality of it that I swiped all the way through until I got to the last UNT, and I was like, yes, oh so very accurate. But as we know, we all want accountability, and people have been putting the pressure on in Minnesota. So top of the news tonight that we have to talk about is Homan has announced that they are ending operations, the surge in Minneapolis. I do believe we have a clip of him trying to look.
Play the clip.
Yeah.
And success that has been made arresting public safety threats and other priorities since this surge operation began, as well as the unprecedented levels of coordination we have obtained from state officials and local law enforcement. I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue through the next week. We have a lot of work to do across this country to remove public safety risk who shouldn't even be in this country, and to deliver on President Trump's promise for strong border security and mass deportation. Law enforcement officers drawn down from this surge operation will either return to the duty station or be assigned elsewhere to achieve just that.
This is my first time seeing the full clip. Is he okay? Because it seems like he's trying to do this whole like glasses low on the nose, sort of approachable. Like I know I wear my glasses to seem more approachable, right? And so he's just doing this like, and he's kind of like slowly going through his statement as if to appear meek in some way, which I think is happening because of the DHS appropriations and funding bill vote coming up tomorrow. But what's your take on this drawdown in Minneapolis?
Yeah, I mean, Tom Homan is the kind of guy, you know, much like Greg Bavino, that they like to cosplay as this tough guy and promote this tough guy image. And this was his, you know, don't let the door hit you in the ass moment. And I think he was struggling to get through it because there's no other way to interpret it other than he's being told, you guys were a fucking disaster in Minnesota. Get the fuck out. And you know, what are you going to say? We got to go somewhere else and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, and I'm sure they are, you know, the agency is recognizing the fact that the American people, their popularity is at an all-time low. The American people have turned on them en masse, to include MAGA folks. And now they're staring down the barrel of being defunded by Congress. And
yeah.
So, you know, I mean, there's been numerous pieces of legislation that were offered up to fund literally every other agency in the government other than ICE and CBP. And those are gaining a considerable amount of traction from what I'm hearing from my friends on Capitol Hill. So they might be the ones left with empty pockets in the next 24, 48 hours.
Well, yeah, and all of their operations are falling apart in real time. Breaking news just before we even came on, Judge Boasberg ordered the return of the Venezuelan men who were deported under the Alien Enemies Act. So all those men who were sent to CCOT and who were then let out of CCOT and I believe into Venezuela have now been ordered to be returned to the U.S. because of a violation of due process and all sorts of other constitutional rights. Now, whether that actually happens, I don't know, but it just goes to show that so many of these operations that have been premised on this lie of the invasion is not holding up.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is crystal clear. It was crystal clear to me back when they deported all of the Venezuelans to CCOT. It's clear in the Constitution. There are many parts of the Constitution that refer to specific rights granted to U.S. citizens, but that is one place in habeas corpus specifically where it is all persons in the United States. And clearly their due process was violated, as has been countless other individuals who have been caught up in this illegal and unconstitutional and unprecedented immigration enforcement action. And, you know, fortunately, they are the courts, however, you know, I mean, it's taking some time, but at least they are eventually getting it right.
Yeah, and hopefully that gets reported as much in the right-wing press as it does get reported everywhere, because I think MAGA thinks they're winning in many ways, and and because they've been siloed into only watching, I don't know, OAN and whatever the MyPillow guy is. But one of the things that I've noted is that, yes, protest works. And we're especially seeing this now that people are leaving Minneapolis. And so I've been reading a book about the Black resistance to police violence. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, wow, the suburban moms who are out there with their whistles, the suburban moms in the Signal chats, these moms are like using the same tactics that the Black Panthers used. And I was fascinated by this because I'm like, oh my God, suburban moms are the new Black Panthers. And they're putting their lives at risk. And Alex Preddy was out there with a weapon in order to, for self-defense, which is what the Black Panther Party was initially about, was many other community programs as well, but it was self-defense in the face of police brutality. And it was the police program. So I think the parallels are striking, in particular because it was one thing for the government to crack down on Black people in the 60s, the optics of that. But the optics of cracking down on white women, they're trying. They're labeling them domestic terrorists in the same way that they labeled Black activists domestic terrorists. But I feel like they can't win this fight, Mike. Like, I don't know. Like, you can't, nobody's buying it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's unfortunate that that's the reality, that, you know, once, I don't know any other fucking way to say it other than, you know, once like white people get involved in something, it's much more difficult for people in power to look away. Although they are giving it, you know, their you know, the old college try, so to speak, with painting them as domestic terrorists. But the defense that, you know, that these individuals have, even though they've already lost their lives, like Alex Preddy and Renee Good, is the fact that there were so many people out there that were documenting this video, you know, videotaping, covering it, and then releasing that through social media platforms, and then eventually to some legacy news media that picked up on it, that showed clearly that these individuals were not acting aggressively towards the officers that and agents that eventually took their lives. But, you know, I saw a lot of social media posts recently. It's undeniable that, you know, there are other individuals who have lost their lives as a part of this illegal immigration enforcement crackdown, as Tom Homan calls it. People of color. But the people that generate the most attention in this country are people like Renee Good and Alex Preddy. And, you know, while I think it's important that, you know, we celebrate their contributions, and I think it's great that white suburban women are finally anteing up and kicking in. It's great that certain MAGA folks are starting to come around and recognize that they got bamboozled. That being said, it's the minority groups and, you know, the most vulnerable of us that are being targeted. And, you know, can't lose sight of that.
No, absolutely not. But I understand from an optics perspective and from a strategic perspective that at the end of the day, I just want to win this fight. And so I am somewhat okay with the elevation of, like, I think the Pretty Good campaign, that I can't remember who put that out there, but the Pretty Good campaign, a lot of people were like, oh, well, they didn't include all of the people of color who had been killed. And I was like, but I'm just thinking from a copywriting perspective, right? Like, my master's is in creative writing. Pretty Good. You can't get much better than that as far as a slogan to try to move a movement forward. So I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm practical. I'm a practical activist in addition to being.
I agree with you. I think slogans, you know, as a rookie to the protest movement, the images, I think, are what is most compelling. You know, the image of Alex Preddy literally on his knees, looking down while an agent points a gun at the back of his head. That's ingrained in my mind, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, picture's worth 1,000 words, which brings me to a story that I'm very interested in. And I don't know if this tactic is being used outside of Minneapolis, but this is an incredibly effective strategy, especially now that cams are ubiquitous, right? Webcams are ubiquitous. Anybody can afford them. So there's a man in Minneapolis who has been installing cameras high definition cameras, because I guess they all are now, on his neighbors' houses, anybody who's willing to participate, and he vets them. And these cameras are pointed at public areas where ICE is likely to try to detain someone. And he has all of them running into a single feed, into basically like a black box type of feed, a hard drive, so that the neighbors can effectively surveil ICE, because ICE is obviously doing things that are illegal, and it's somewhat dangerous to film ICE when you're there present. But if you can film them, if you just have a camera, it's like, fine, you guys want to be big brother to us, we're going to be big brother to you too. And I love this strategy.
No, I agree. I mean, it's clear that it's working too. I mean, obviously, ICE is now and CBP are moving out of Minnesota, but you also see efforts by the agency to kind of meld the, they talk about what USC 18 something, assaulting or impeding law enforcement officer, and they were trying to incorporate filming ICE into that statute to say that it's illegal to film ICE agents, which is outrageous and it's unconstitutional and it's literally insane. But the fact that they would try that shows that filming them is literally the most effective way to combat, the illegal behavior.
Oh, no, absolutely. And so everybody, I encourage you to continue to film, but even legal observers in New York City, Letitia James has put out I think it was last week, she said she wants New Yorkers to submit videos of immigration enforcement actions happening, but she also is going to be employing legal observers to monitor them. So they're going to have vests on, I think like bright green vests that say legal observer. And so that sort of physical presence in the neighborhoods, I think, too, is going to cause ICE to have to rethink a lot of their strategies.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great use of resources that are already available. I mean, some of these state AGs should be getting their state, prosecutors out there on the streets, and I'm sure, public defenders as well would be lining up to participate in those types of activities. So I applaud that.
Yeah, and I think it also curtails the sort of argument that it's a bunch of domestic terrorists, lawless people out there who are impeding ICE. It makes me think a lot of because nobody's buying it. It's like the thing where somebody's like, "Oh, stop hitting me, and they're trying to create evidence, and you're looking around and you're like, "No one's being hit. What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Oh, stop hitting me." I'm like, "Wait, what?" So I think the American people are smarter than that, and yet I'm seeing a lot of Democrats who are like, "We have to reform ICE, not abolish ICE." And the conversation right now is, are we abolishing it or are we reforming it? And I don't know if we have the image, but do we have the skier? Sam, do we have the, I think it's Gus. I can't remember his last name. He basically is one of the Olympians. Even the Olympians, Mike, are saying, fuck ICE. And Winter Olympics, which is a very privileged sport. So we're talking, oh yeah, we got it. So I don't know if you saw this. He's got
urinate that is that urine?
I mean, it is urine color, but I feel like who could aim like that?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, God damn, that guy's talented. He's multi-talented. He's an Olympic skier.
I was going to say that's an Olympic sport in itself. Ice peeing. Yeah. Should be. But when you've lost the white guys who are at the Olympics and they're saying fuck ICE, why in the world would abolish ICE even be why would reform ICE even be a strategy that somebody would want to go with? Like, everybody wants, in my mind, I'm like, everybody's like, fuck ICE, abolish it.
I think this is it speaks to the lack of understanding within the Democratic establishment and kind of the leadership of the party, they're so afraid of, the defund the ICE, or I'm sorry, defund the police and the backlash that they received from that versus, which I admit, I thought that was a stupid fucking slogan. A lot of the things that we were experiencing during that time, while there was some behaviors that were inexplicable in my mind, case in point, Derek Chauvin. But there were also a lot of officers that I saw myself in and said, you know what? It's a lack of training. It's a lack of, officer wellness. And so that there was an argument to be made that maybe there should have been more funding, or at least appropriating money into certain areas in law enforcement that would help combat some of the issues that we are seeing play out on the streets. This is a whole other animal. This agency, in the way that it has behaved, I made the argument the other day in a conversation I was having, in that, Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, Pam Bondi, all of these people at the top levels of, the American criminal justice system and law enforcement agents, Kash Patel included, have essentially told law enforcement all across the country, state, local, municipal, federal level, the gloves are off. Donald Trump famously said, "They spit, we hit." He's the message has been clear, but yet the only agency that you see behaving in this manner at this level. I mean, of course, there's always, examples here and there from other places. But are we talking about these stories ad nauseum like we are talking about them with ICE and CBP? No. So there's clearly a problem with the culture in this organization that goes back probably long before Donald Trump came along. And they're the ones who decided that now that there's no oversight, we're going to go out there and behave like animals to American citizens, to migrants. And so in my mind, this is an agency that is far beyond reform. It needs to be disbanded. There is immigration enforcement is necessary. I think that the individuals who've been involved in the immigration operations under this administration should never wear a badge in this country ever again.
Now, I think there's so many arguments for getting rid of ICE, in addition to the fact that they seem to be wanton criminals. When I hear it, and I'm thinking many Black people are the same, I didn't want to hear, if I'm thinking back in the 1800s, I wouldn't want to hear reform slavery. I'd want to hear abolish slavery, right? Like, I'm thinking I want the abolitionists are the ones who we remember, not the ones who were like, hey, let's make them, let's play it forward. Like, what would reforming ICE look like? Being nicer to children in detention, that like giving them toys, giving them video games to play while they're in detention? Like, what would that even mean? Like, what do reforms look like when we're literally concentrating people in warehouses?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, what needs to be reformed is this country's immigration policies, not the enforcement arm that has clearly abused power, violated the U.S. Constitution, and committed some pretty horrific, violent, and inhumane actions on a daily basis. If you want to reform something, reform the way that people can migrate to this country legally, make the system work more efficient, rather than worrying about, because I mean, if there's anybody that's holding on to the lie that the vast majority of these people are criminals, that they're violent drug dealers and rapists, that has long since been dispelled. I won't even engage with people that make that argument, because you clearly either don't want to know, or you're just fucking uninformed. And I can't have that conversation anymore with those folks, because the numbers speak for themselves. And I think right now we're hovering somewhere around 78% of the people that have been detained. Some places reporting in the 80 percentile have no criminal record whatsoever.
Meanwhile, in the past year alone, at least 9 ICE officials and contractors have been arrested or convicted on charges including domestic violence, assaulting a protester, physically abusing a handcuffed detainee, sexual misconduct. If you remember, there was the guy who was raping his detainee, having other detainees watch out for him in exchange for letting her see her daughter.
Yeah.
Over the course of 5 months. That is insane behavior.
Yeah, I agree. It's insane behavior, and I don't even understand. I mean, it seems as though I was talking about a story on my YouTube show the other day about a guy that's in charge of background checks for DHS, and he was caught up in this child, sex
trafficking, right?
Trafficking sting, yeah, and I mean, there's part of the problem. I mean, you have criminals conducting background checks for federal agents, which I don't even understand how that occurs. But yeah, there's clearly issues within this agency that are systemic and unrepairable.
Well, and so Republicans, it's a non-starter that they have to follow the law. Judicial warrants, we've talked about judicial warrants versus administrative warrants. One of the things that there's like, oh, well, we're giving them body cams, right? 60%, I think, of those deployed on the front line in Minneapolis have body cams. But I'm also seeing reports that there's the potential that they could use those body cams to feed images into the database of domestic terrorists that they are claiming they don't have, but then ICE agents are like, oh, yes, we definitely have. So I don't see how a body cam necessarily is even going to help us make ICE better.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand that, the body camera, it's designed to obviously record encounters. Now, the body-worn cameras that I was issued when I was with the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C., they have to be activated by the officer. So there's, one issue right there is that, agents could not activate the body-worn camera. But then even if they do activate the body-worn camera and it records them doing something unlawful or unconstitutional, there's no mechanism to hold them accountable. I mean, the people that are in place have said that they can act with immunity. Stephen Miller has said that all federal agents have immunity, which is not true.
They don't. I was going to say.
If the person who is in charge of prosecuting these individuals, Pam Bondi and her Department of Justice, don't prosecute them, then who gives a shit if their body-worn camera records them, executing somebody? I mean, we have footage of Alex Preddy being executed in the streets of Minneapolis. And has there been any accountability there? No. Will there be? Not under this administration.
Well, let's look, because Swalwell during the hearing has some comments that I think people need to hear if they haven't seen it already. So let's roll that clip and we can talk about it.
Director Lyons, last year you said in Phoenix at the Border Security Expo that you wanted to see a deportation process that was like, quote, Amazon Prime, but with human beings. Mr. Lyons, how many times has Amazon Prime shot a mom 3 times in the face?
None, sir, but you're also...
It's the square root of 0, that's right.
Yes, sir. Yeah, but if we're gonna go down that route of my comment, I did say that comment. However, that comment was taken out. If you go back and watch the video, I did say that we need to be more efficient when it comes to removing individuals from the United States, because ICE doesn't detain punitively. We detain to remove. I don't want to see people in custody. At the end of my statement was, and again, to your point, it was a industry day for AI and efficiencies, but I did say at the end of it, but we deal with human beings, so we can't be like them.
And speaking
That's
of
the
human,
key part that you're leaving out.
Well, speaking of human beings, how many times has Amazon Prime shot a nurse 10 times in the back?
None.
How many times has Amazon Prime dragged a woman out of her car by her hair and then dragged her down the street?
None.
At least he's a serious man in his response. But what's concerning to me about Todd Lyons is that he never saw an issue with making the analogy of comparing ICE operations that do deal with people to Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it speaks to the callousness of, this one you can even apply to the greater law enforcement community at large. I mean, I've made a lot of callous comments in my time as a police officer, and it was born out of the culture that is promoted by law enforcement. And I think that, it wasn't until I had several years out of law enforcement that I started to recognize like how dangerous and destructive that culture is. And this is clearly someone who is, submersed in that culture.
Well, and this is what they want us to give more money to. And I think a lot of people weren't paying attention when the big, beautiful bill got passed and didn't understand, even though many of us were screaming about it, giving $150 billion to, every time I say the number, I'm like, that can't be right. And I have to go back and fact check myself.
$178 billion.
Billion, not million. Because every time I hear it and I go, no, it can't be.
Cameras for every single ICE agent that's interacting with members of the public.
Well, and they say it, they're like, well, we'll behave better if you give us more money. There'll be accountability if you give us more money is one of the arguments. We'll be able to buy more cameras. We'll be able to do.
They have more money than all the other federal agencies combined. It's literally insane the amount of money. They have money. They have more money than some countries' entire military. They have more money than our Marine Corps.
Yeah, well, and I think people need to tie it to, and this is your call to action, y'all, to call Congress, tie it to the fact that Steve Bannon is talking about ICE agents outside of polling places. Do you really want to give more money and continue to fund an agency that is about to go try to intimidate people at the polls? Does that make a lot of sense?
No. And don't forget, too, if you think, Steve Bannon is just some extreme, nutball, that's true. But what is also true is that he's an oracle when it comes to things that come to fruition later on in MAGA land. And so, pretty much everything, if not everything that he has said that will come about has. And I have no doubt in my mind that ICE agents will be deployed in some form or fashion to intimidate voters at polling places come the midterm elections, in combination with a lot of other efforts to ensure that we do not have free and fair elections in this country.
Well, because they know that despite the fact that they think they're winning and they issued some sort of proclamation or statement on the White House website about panicins, don't be panicins, we're winning. No, they've lost. I know when I'm winning, I issue a statement. I'm like, hey, everybody, just so you know.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Trump, because I remember watching this and thinking to myself, this can't be fucking real. And I called a couple people and they were like, no, that's real. That came out of the White House. It was like Alex Jones, like he was talking over Alex Jones, who was like, I don't know what he was saying in the car, but it was like he basically told all of his naysayers from MAGA land to shut the fuck up.
I did not hear this.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's real. It sounds plausible. And I think that's the problem these days is like, what's real, what's not. And obviously they win the more confusion they create, which is why we do this show, so we can keep people centered on what's real. And what's real, don't be a panickin. We're winning and we're not slowing down. You actually are slowing down. You're pulling out agents from Minneapolis with their tails between their legs and not winning. And this comes after Super Bowl weekend, after the Winter Olympics kicked off and JD Vance is getting booed, and it's quite clear, like they may have the White House, they have the Senate, the House, and a captured court, but they don't have the hearts of the American people, and they certainly don't have the culture, which brings us to the last piece of things that I want to talk about tonight. Mike, you were telling me about White Riot, and I was like, that sounds scary. And then I Googled it and I was like, oh, okay, that's better. about music and the fight, music and the fight against fascism and the punk movement. So I want to talk about that in relation to Bad Bunny Bowl. So if you could give everybody a primer, get your dry erase board / chalkboard out and tell us about White Riot and the punk movement in the UK.
Yeah, no, I mean, all this stemmed out of like my good friend Ken Casey and I. Ken Casey's the front man for the punk rock band, the Dropkick Murphys. They've been incredibly outspoken. Ken specifically very outspoken about this administration. And, you know, the two of us were talking about punk rock's role in and really music in general, and musicians and artists' role and responsibility in moments like these. And so I remembered watching this documentary. I went back and watched it the other day. That's when I brought it to your attention, Maya. And it's so I guess in the late 70s, the National Front was this, I mean, really, they were like cosplaying Nazis, but it was a white supremacist, white nationalist, white Christian nationalist movement that was taking hold in Great Britain. And it was a combination. They had the political arm, and then you started to see these neo-Nazi skinheads that were out on the streets, and they were incredibly violent. They were targeting immigrants. They were targeting, the migrant community in Great Britain. You heard a lot of the same slogans that you're hearing out of the Trump administration, out of the MAGA movement. And it was a couple of hippies that got together and decided that they were going to have a concert and a march, and it was Rock Against Fascism. And they ended up getting a band, Sham 69, which a lot of similarities to Dropkick Murphys. They were a working class band. They had, the lead singer of the band had been a working class guy his entire life. They were very much ingrained in working class society. And they joined up with the Clash, and they had this massive concert and incredible march and rally that incorporated tens of thousands of Britons from all walks of life. People that listened to the music, people that didn't listen to the music, that were outraged and were looking for an opportunity to form community. And so that's why, I'm constantly looking for ways to combat this, what we're experiencing right now. And while I've never been musically inclined, music has always been a huge part of my life. And so that was a inspirational story that, and it also ties into what you were just talking about, what Bad Bunny did during the Super Bowl. And I got to throw this out there too, because this is a newer edition, but I've always been a country music fan. Not a lot of authenticity happening right now in the country music movement, but there is a guy that I would love everybody to check out. He's not new, but he just recently came out with some pretty strong statements against Trump, against MAGA, and he's catching a lot of hell. And that's Charlie Crockett. Unbelievably talented artist. I had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of years ago. I was at one of his concerts at the 930 Club in Washington, D.C., and he actually saw me out his tour bus window. I was just there like everybody else, and he snatched me up and brought me back with my oldest daughter, and we hung out for the evening. But we got to support people that support this movement, because I got to tell you, like, I give Ken a lot of credit. He's taken hell for being outspoken, but he's in the punk rock movement. And quite frankly, if you're a punk rocker and you support Trump, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you. But Charlie Crockett's in the country music industry. So for him to come out and make some of the comments that he did so publicly, he's drawing a tremendous amount of hate and threat. So please support that guy.
Well, and at the end of the day, and I am a firm believer in art as activism, and musicians are writers, they're lyricists, they're observers. And so they observe our culture and they see what's happening and they communicate it to people in a way that is moving, especially when combined with music. And you don't necessarily need to understand the lyrics to do so, but everything from the hip hop movement and Public Enemy and Chuck D, all those guys, like they have always been about bringing people together against, which in the Black community's case, against fascism and against state-sanctioned violence. And so that brings us to Bad Bunny Bowl, which I teared up. I was like, do not cry during a Super Bowl show, Maya. I was like, do not do it. It was like, it was coming up. And I'm sure everybody has seen the Bad Bunny Bowl at this point, but I want to roll a clip at the end of his performance and talk about it.
God bless America. Sea Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, Perú, Ecuador, Brasil, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Panamá, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, México, Cuba, República Dominicana, Jamaica, Haití, las Antillas, United States, Canadá, and my motherland, mi patria, Puerto Rico. Seguimos aquí.
I loved this part so much because MAGA was busy screaming about, oh, there is like gay sex on the scene and we're going to have an investigation. And what we're really seeing here is, they talked about the migrant caravan and migrants invading. And what you saw in that was a parade of immigrants, I'm sure people who are born in the U.S. as well, Black and brown, marching together in unity. And it was beautiful and touching and named all of the countries of the Americas. And I know people in Canada were so excited when I have seen plenty of memes about when they heard Canada named and they were like, yay, us too. I think the visual of seeing people come together and they're not a threat. They're coming together and they're dancing and they're having a good time really just flies in the face of everything the Trump administration is trying to do, which is to portray immigrants as dangerous to American culture, whether that be actually physically violent dangerous, but just dangerous in the sense that it will erase American culture. And what Bad Bunny did is said, no, we are America and we're all a part of the culture. Did you cry during this Bad Bunny Bowl?
No, but I did think it was the highlight of probably one of the most boring, miserable Super Bowls that I've watched in like a really long time. So I appreciated it for that. I mean, I know who Bad Bunny is. I've got, teenage kids. I enjoyed it. I don't know how else to say it. Like I thought it was fun for me. Like I said, it was the highlight of the Super Bowl. That being said, I'm not a huge appreciator of the arts in that format. I did like the 100+ beautiful Latin women shaking their ass. That was great. But I'm a simple man. I think what made me appreciate it as much was just all the negativity that was out there leading up to this. MAGA claiming like, why can't we have a fucking American perform at the halftime show?
Which is really embarrassing for them to not know that Puerto Ricans are Americans. And I never know what to respond to people in comments when they say things like that, because I don't want to call them stupid because that's not helpful. And so trying to figure out how to turn things into teachable moments. But again, I keep asking myself, when people are screaming about this replacement the Great Replacement theory, and it's the same thing that they're trying to do in many places in Europe as well. Keep in mind, CPAC, if you remember, goes to all these other countries, and all the right-wing organizations get together and learn how to push fascism in their particular country. And so when I see, I'm like, what exactly are they concerned about replacing? Because I was talking to my mom about this. I'm like, what's uniquely American as far as our culture? Like chicken wings, like buffalo wings, like that's a thing we do. But
buffalo wings are too spicy. No, it's too spicy for those white people. They can't.
But I think I'm like, okay, so then fine, apple pie. Like, but most of what I think of American culture is that we have this mix of things. I don't like this idea that there's something that's uniquely, specifically American that we're worried about replacing. What is that exactly? Because the only thing I can think of is race. Like, it seems like it can only be whiteness that they're concerned about. Listen,
I'm a child of immigrants. My mother's side of the family is Irish. They immigrated here. My father's side immigrated from Italy. I've always grown up appreciating and understanding American culture to be a melting pot of migrants' cultures that they bring to the United States. I mean, everybody enjoys that. I guess what they're talking about, I think Megyn Kelly probably said it best. Singing in Spanish is a slap in the face to America and to Americans. And I think by that, they're just referring to, racist white people that, think that they or can trace their lineage back to like the Nina Pinta and Santa Maria. Which, by the way, you're a fucking immigrant too. But that being said, they don't see themselves that way. They were, I don't know, like it was a conquest ordained by God.
Well, and I think that is how I know that we are winning, because in their effort to try to push forth their ideology, they have had to go from dog whistles to being outright racist. And that has pushed away everybody. And as I mentioned before, including the Olympians. So even though things are stressful right now, even though we see other countries moving to accountability for men who are in the Epstein files. And I know here in the States, we're like, oh my God, we're never going to see accountability. I actually am feeling very optimistic, because where can this administration go after all of the egregious behavior in the last week? I feel like they are spiraling downward. And I think Bad Bunny Bowl gave us the energy to fight another 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks. I've got 2 more weeks of energy before I'm going to need another good news.
Yeah, I've got a lot of energy. I'm not worried about that. But no, I agree. You got no disagreement out of me.
Well, all right then. Cool. So y'all, this is what I want to ask. If you want us to talk more about music, because I do want to cover other strategies for fighting against fascism. We can have a music focused episode. That would be fun. We can go through some lyrics of some anti-fascist musicians, would be fun, including country music, because, hey, Mike, guess what? I also like country music, believe it or not. My friend's family took me to the Wee Fest when I was in college, and I helped sell mini donuts, and I got exposed to 3 days of country music and camping. And I came out of that a huge Garth Brooks fan. So I had my country music era. So we can go over Charlie Crockett is his name, his music.
Charlie Crockett. You're going to love it. There's a lot of soul in there. There's a lot of Creole. There's street music. He's very, very talented, amazing guy, authentic, which, in contrast, one of the comments I wanted to make, Bad Bunny, authentic, say whatever the fuck you want about him. It's not your cup of tea, whatever, authentic. That piss poor display of an alternative snowflake halftime show for racist ass white people. The least authentic cast of characters ever. Kid Rock, cosplay rapper / white Christian nationalist / pedophile. I mean, he seems to
He's
like it in his lyrics.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's a performative pedophile.
Cosplay pedophile. And you know that I would list off all the other names, but I've never heard of any of those fucking guys, so I can't. But no authenticity there. I do ask everybody should check out the one guy's song where it opens up where he sings about he just wants to fish and feed his dog and do some other shit without worrying about his kids becoming trans. That was
an actual song.
That was a banger, dude. That was a banger. It's probably going to win a Grammy next year in the country category, no doubt.
I saw someone post about like it has the same energy of wanting separate water fountains and separate bathrooms. This whole idea of having a separate Super Bowl, but maybe they'll have their own racist Grammys and things next year. They can just separate out. I'd be perfectly fine if they just decide they just want to separate themselves and have their own little thing. I know there's that little community in Tennessee where they're all like, it's going to be the all white community. Cool.
Yeah, I don't want them in the continental United States. Like there's a spot that's available right now. It's called Epstein Island.
I was going to say,
all you motherfuckers get on a boat, a plane. If you can't afford a plane, get on an inner tube and paddle your happy ass out to that island and live there. And you can
paddle out.
Pedophilia shit. You could be racist pedophiles. Do it there. Leave the fucking rest of us normal folks to live our lives without, having to address your despicable behavior on a regular basis.
As I say, Carnival Cruise Lines has the opportunity to do the funniest ad campaign right now. So, on that note, y'all, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you back next week.